הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. יאללה, יאללה, לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. יאללה, יאללה, לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to Congregation Orami, especially if it's your first time here ever or just in a long while. So we're glad to be celebrating Shabbat with you tonight, and welcome also to those joining us from home through our live stream. We begin our service together on page 1. Let's read in English, I am Israel. All the generations before me exist within me. All are present at this moment. Dwellers in tents and tenements, weavers, tailors, bankers, physicians, beggars dozing in a sunny corner, fruit sellers freezing in the market square, mothers and fathers in a tangled chain, all those who studied the Torah, all those who settled the land, all those who were crammed into steerage, who broke the glass and circumcised their sons, 600,000 who stood at Sinai, 6 million souls who perished, Abraham, my father, Sarah, my mother, Joseph, my brother, Miriam, my sister, Moses, my teacher. Their voices speak in me. I am Israel. And we continue on page 4. I'd like to invite up Jenny to light our Shabbat candles this week.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. So at this point in our service, we think of the week that has passed, and we hold on to all of the good things from this past week. So if you had an experience that inspired gratitude, if you have some good news to share, no matter how big or how small, I invite you to share that joy with the community now. Yeah, Laura?
I won tickets to a concert, and I went with a relatively new friend, and we heard amazing transcendent music.
Awesome. Glad you got to go to a wonderful concert. And Bruce?
Yes, earlier this week, I went to Washington, D.C. to see my nephew and his wife and their one-year-old son. They were here from Singapore, and not yet met the one-year-old. I don't know what you call that as a relative to me.
Great grandnephew? I don't know.
My great-grandnephew.
Yeah. Awesome. So I'm glad you got to see family all the way from Singapore. Yeah. Pat?
Happy I don't have shingles.
Good to be shingle-free. Best way to be. Lisa?
Our pregnant daughter-in-law has an OP appointment and was given the okay to come to Richmond for Thanksgiving.
Awesome. I'm glad she can travel and can be together. And Danielle? Wonderful. Glad you had some good family time. And Ron?
I had the pleasure of planting a new tree, and I always enjoy that.
Wonderful. So we thank God for all of these blessings, including the blessing of simply being alive for this moment in time with the words of Shehechianu at the top of page 5. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu Azman hazeh Amen. And we continue with Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we continue on page 6 with the responsive reading Shabbat. For our ancestors, the seventh day was a sign of their covenant with God. They kept it faithfully. When their lives were torn by violence from without, Shabbat made them feel whole within. When their lives were embittered, Shabbat brought them sweetness. When their lives were peaceful, Shabbat deepened their joy. We speak many words, but few that remind us of the covenant. Let us emerge from this Sabbath, renewed in our quest for wholeness, reawakened to the urgent beauty of being present in a God-filled world. Let us crown the seventh day by living it, by tasting its sweetness, by feeling its joy, by opening ourselves to it in all. And we continue on page 7 with Boi Kala, the abbreviated version of the Chadodit, so last line and then the top 2 lines. Boi Kala, 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 Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat Nikah. And we continue on page 8 praying together. Long ago, King David said to the community of Israel, "Now bless the Eternal your God." And the whole congregation blessed the Eternal, God of their mothers and fathers, and bowed their heads low. Now, in the presence of community, in pursuit of the sacred, in gratitude and awe, we too bow before the infinite. Please rise for our official call to prayer, the Baruch Hu. Yar la 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 la. Yar la 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 la. Yar la 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 la. Yar la 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 la. Yar la 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 la. Yar la 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 la. Yar la 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 la. Yar la 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 la. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach. HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Please be seated. Continue with Ma'ariv Aravim. As new generations come and go, the world remains largely the same. The sun rises and sets each day. Winds blow according to their set patterns. Seas flow as if following a diagram drawn carefully by God's own steady hand. Every night, constellations assume their positions in the sky, faithfully reminding us that what has been will be again for each generation to enjoy. Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, who brings on the evening twilight. And we continue with the responsive reading on page 9. Holy is the dignity that is human, sacred the mystery we call divine.
Holy is the sacrifice made for those we love, precious the pains they take for us.
Sublime the glory of the heavens above us, sacred the beauty that glows within us.
Noble is the mind in search of meaning, the heart is happy that finds its way.
Awesome is the power that rules our being, holy is the kinship that makes us one. Please rise for the Shema. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Please be seated. Page 10. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvelechtecha b'derech ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני Elohechem. We continue with the responsive reading on page 11. Precious is the light by which we gaze upon the past, and blessed are the journeys of those who came before us.
Abraham and Sarah left familiar ways, went forth to places they did not know. Moses and Miriam led their people from fear to faith through a wilderness of doubt.
Blessed is the wisdom of sages and prophets who taught our ancestors the life of holiness.
You shall not oppress a stranger, who knows the stranger's heart.
Let justice well up like water, righteousness like an unfailing stream.
You must not remain indifferent. Love your neighbor as yourself.
Out of violence and brokenness came prayers of healing, a religion of renewal, joy, and compassion.
Through centuries of longing, their hearts in the east when they were in the west. Those who came before us prayed, next year in Jerusalem.
Inspired by their journeys of determination and love, may we find our own ways of marching to the promised land. Let me continue with Micha Mocha, page 12. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya la 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 ya la 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 Micha mocha ba'elim Adonai Micha mocha nedar b'kodesh Nora tehilot osefele, Nora tehilot osefele. Continue with Vishamru at the bottom of the page. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל Oti leolam, oti leolam, beshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש Shabbat vayinafash, vayinafash, beshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. We continue on page 13 with the responsive reading. Our God and God of the generations before us, We long to feel close and connected to you. You are the lasting memory of sages and students, of prophets and priests. We know you today as the voice of kindness within us. We know you also as the constant hope that lives in our heart. You are the sacred presence that connects everything. You are the one who creates and protects all life. Please rise for our central prayer, the Amidah. Adonai, Sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, v'Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Geula Lifnei Bneihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Hozer U'Moshiach U'Magim. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Hakol, Atah Rav Lehoshia. Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayei Hakol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofeh Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Baal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit Umechaye, Umatmeach Yeshua, V'ne'eman Ata L'chayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayei HaKol. Please be seated. We continue with a relatively quiet moment for personal prayer or reflection. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon, lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech Adon, lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה Bishlomecha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. At this point in our service, we think of loved ones who are in need of healing. Tonight, we think especially of Michael Kinnebrew, Robert Signer, Alyssa Freeman, Marcy Horwitz, Beth Levine, Rabbi Jerry Levy, and Natalie Rayner. Are there other loved ones whose healing we wish to pray for tonight?
Susan Kelly.
With the power of community, we pray for their refuah shlema, their complete healing of body and or spirit, with the words of Mishaberach found on page 18. Mishaberach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mikor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. In the last section of this week's Torah portion, which is Genesis chapter 17, God establishes a brit, or a special covenant or eternal agreement with Abraham and Abraham's descendants. God promises Abraham that despite being childless at age 99, he will soon be very fruitful and ultimately become the father of many nations. As part of this agreement, Abraham receives a new and longer name to indicate his change in status. No longer just Avram, he is now Avraham. His wife, Sarai, also receives a new name with a larger letter, He, rather than Yud at the end. God says that Sarah, formerly known as Sarai, will likewise become the mother of nations, plural. But sandwiched in between these two name changes are 4 verses about the spiritual significance of circumcision. Every male in their tribe is to be circumcised at the age of 8 days as a sign of the covenant. I used to see these verses as fairly straightforward, but over the years I have had some thought-provoking conversations about this physical aspect of the covenant. And tonight I would like to have a short discussion related to this topic. I know you're excited for this, and this is why I've never done it. I was like, what idea haven't I done before on this Torah portion? So I'm getting out of ideas, as you could tell. The first question is, do you think it is important or meaningful to have a physical sign representing a commitment or relationship? For example, like a wedding ring to represent your marital commitment. How could it be helpful or meaningful to have a physical or visible sign? So take a moment to think about that. And Elliot, would you mind bringing the microphone so people can hear at home? Ron had his hand up.
I just think that physical signs are really, really powerful, whether it's a written covenant, kiddushim, or any kind of written covenant. Is just it just seems more powerful than just an oral agreement.
Mm-hmm. So you can say, yeah, blah, 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 I love you. But to have it like really written down, like these are the terms of our relationship, this is a real commitment. And to see that regularly, like in a ketubah.
Especially when you have it in the bedroom and can point to it.
So you have a fight about how to load the dishwasher, you can point to that and say, remember when we said this, right? So can you think of any other examples where it's nice to have like a physical sign of something, of a relationship to someone or something? Yeah, Daniela?
This makes me think of like the mezuzah at the door, and that might be assigned to, like, say if you have somebody over at your house, a guest or somebody, it might be assigned to them to also kind of be respectful of your faith and to be aware of it too. So I think physical signs are not just like, you know, your marriage to somebody else or whatever. I think you can also be assigned to people on the outside of what they're about to encounter with you and to acknowledge and at the very least respect it.
So some symbols are pretty private, right? You don't like carry your ketubah outside all the time. You're like, look at, I mean, we have wedding rings, so that's one way to be like, look at how married I am. But the mezuzah is right there on the outside of your house. So a stranger who knows what a mezuzah is can walk by and be like, oh, wow, a Jewish person lives here. So no matter where you go in the world, it's pretty exciting to have that symbol that you automatically know that means they're in a relationship with the Jewish community, right? They're connected to it in some way. Any other symbols that you find powerful or meaningful? We'll skip to the next question. Okay. This one might be harder. If you had to come up with a physical or visible sign of someone's commitment to Judaism or to God that any person could demonstrate, what symbol or sign would that be? And would you have it be something permanent, something removable like a kippah, or something renewable that you had to like recreate like a sukkah every so often? Would it be easier to stick with the three categories? Like first, would you make a permanent symbol? Want to raise your hand to vote for permanent symbol for the covenant? Okay, so we got one vote. Thank you for participating in democracy. What about something removable? Do you like that you can take your kippah off and not have everyone necessarily know that you're Jewish everywhere you go? Okay, so we got one vote, two vote, three vote, four. Okay, we're getting that. Here we go. How about renewable? Do you think there's a power to having a symbol that disappears if you don't put in the work of rebuilding it? Yeah, you can vote for all of them. Yeah. Permanent, renewable, removable, all of the above.
I think all of those symbols are very powerful in their different ways. Each one of them help remind us that when we do things, they're associated in time and in memory with people that may no longer be here. When we put on a kippah or use a brit gown that has been handed down through the generations, it reminds you of the generations of Israel and the generations of your own family. And when we do periodic things like build the sukkah or go to high holiday services or whatever, all of those things just make everything more powerful because they're manifestations of different parts of our lives.
Yeah. Jenny?
I feel a little bit different about this. I mean, I have a ketubah. I signed a ketubah. I never framed it. It's in a box somewhere. Those kind of symbols aren't as meaningful to me as like maybe some other thing. I think tradition is like what I feel is most powerful, and whether that's lighting the candles or something. But I don't feel, for me necessarily, I don't need to have something like in front of me or written to have that as a meaningful experience for me.
So it's not the object itself that has the meaning, it's the fact that you did have a ketubah, even if it's in a box somewhere, like you kept that tradition that your parents and grandparents did. Laura, did you have your hand up?
Well, yeah, now I do.
Yeah, well, Okay, so the last example that you gave was what? Something that you could remove?
Yeah, like a kippah, right? You can,
Okay, oh,
that's a sign that you're Jewish and part of this covenant. But if you don't want it on when you go, wherever you go, you can take it off pretty easily.
isn't the sign made on your heart more significant than any physical sign?
So I feel like there's a
Okay.
big theological debate about that, right? Between Judaism and Christianity. Christianity said, we're not going to get a lot of recruits here if we require male circumcision. People find that pretty dramatic, right, as a symbol of commitment. And it wasn't popular in the Greek world where they were trying to get their converts. So they said you can have a circumcised heart, right? And there's no actual surgery for that. It's just some internal feeling of kind of commitment. Versus Judaism said, we're going to be literal about this and say, your father did this, your grandfather did this. It's, kind of minor moment to create this permanent connection with the community. And I think that debate goes on. And when we get to the last question, we'll talk about how even the Jewish community people have grappled with this in different generations.
I mean, it's an outward sign to anybody who sees you privately, but not to anybody else.
Yeah, so walking
Unless
down the
you're a
street, no
nudist.
one knows, right? If you're in a village where everyone goes to the same mikveh house and all the men are going before Yom Kippur, right? That's like one moment where it's not that everyone's paying attention, but it's a moment where everyone can see we've got the same kind of symbol of commitment and belonging to this community. But you're right, most of the time it doesn't come up.
Sometimes that can work against you, especially if your enemies are looking for you.
And that's been a theme in Jewish history, right?
Yeah, you
The
think?
story of Hanukkah, you have some Jews who were not wanting to be identified as part of the tribe, and they underwent a procedure to try to regrow some foreskin. It was very painful and not super effective, but they would pay for this medical procedure. And I think there's some people today who claim that they can restore things so that you don't have that as like a permanent mark of belonging to this particular community. So I know everyone came here to talk about foreskin tonight. Yes.
It's not exactly foreskin, but this is.
It's okay to change the topic,
Sort of
yeah.
along the same lines. I grew up in a very Jewish neighborhood, and when I moved away to a place that was very non-Jewish, as in my early 20s, I decided I need to stop eating shellfish and pork, which I had my whole life, as a way to remind me and to remember. And I keep that to this day. So that's sort of a symbol to me.
Mm-hmm.
As well as you go out with friends and you say, no, I can't eat pork or shell. Are you allergic? And I always say, no, I'm not allergic. So similar.
So sometimes you can do things, right? Your behavior shows that you're part of a community. There's certain cultural traditions that you observe, and that's another way to show that you're in relationship with other Jews or with this covenant with God. Okay, so the last question. So over the years, I've spoken with a number of young parents about ways to reconcile modern parenting philosophies that are very much emphasizing, like, let the child kind of make their own decisions in life, versus ancient rituals like the bris, which is a decision that parents make when their children are very small to bring them into the covenant in a very specific way. So a lot of new parents have felt pretty anxious about having to make such a big decision for such a small child. I'm wondering, am I doing the right thing for my kid? Will they be upset or happy that I took care of this for them? So the last question is, if you are a parent, what would you say are some of the biggest decisions you have made for your child so far? And then if you don't have any children, what are some of the biggest decisions that you think that your parents made for you? So, yeah, Margaret?
So when Molly was born, Donna and I, my ex-Donna and I, made a very strong commitment that she would be raised in a faith community, and that because that had been a really important part of our growing up years, and that was something we wanted to pass on to her. So we had to go searching for a faith community because at the time we were in between things and we hadn't decided where we were going to land. But that was a pretty big decision that we made on her behalf because it was something that we wanted to pass those traditions down to her. We wanted to pass on the tradition of that we were both people who had strong faith, and we wanted to pass that on to her.
Mm-hmm. So it can be a big commitment to get up on the weekend and go to more structured activities. Yeah, Michael?
Yeah, so I don't know what life is like uncircumcised, but I'm glad looking back on it that my parents made that decision. And, I realize at 8 days you're old, you don't really have the formative consent to understand that this is a choice you're making. It's something that your parents decide for you. And like Donna just mentioned, that community of faith, it's important. And I think having that instilled in you even at a very young age, this is part of your community. And I think mixing it with elements of choice is important as well, where maybe the child is exposed to multiple traditions, but that's always still going to be a part of who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And just to add a little bit of contrast, my parents never agreed and probably still don't agree with the faith choice they made in terms of bringing us up. But essentially one of them really sort of won in the end, and we really didn't grow up with much religion at all. And looking back on it, I am actually really grateful that I had that experience because I feel like it didn't predispose me to having one set of spiritual values or not. I really enjoyed that freedom.
Mm-hmm. So there can be multiple wonderful opportunities, right? And no matter what path you're on, some people really like having the guidance of like one strong tradition. It can remove a lot of anxiety from life. And other people really like the open-mindedness of getting to explore. And for some people, that can bring a little more anxiety of like, am I doing this right? Like, how do you do life? How do you be a good human? This, that, and figuring out answers on your own can be fun, but also challenging. Yeah, Ron?
In addition to their genetics, children have to be shaped, and their minds and bodies have to be opened to all different kinds of aspects of living, their physical and their mental and their spiritual. And a lot of times if children don't get spiritual training at the beginning, it's more difficult to open those channels when they get older. When they get older, they can reconsider things for themselves if they want to. But the capability of prayer and of feeling close to the spirit of the world, I think is really important for children. I'm glad I had that opportunity. I'm glad my parents made that decision for me.
Mm-hmm. So it can be a gift to be exposed to that, especially on a regular basis. You can pick it up, and sort of like parents have to choose like what to feed us, right? They can just give us Cheetos for every meal, right? Or they can say, let's try a little broccoli, right? And if you're never exposed to broccoli, it becomes a lot harder to eat that when you're older. So it's good to be exposed to a variety of things and to be guided in, the healthiest path that your parents can figure out for you. Any other thoughts? Yeah, Jenny?
I was just going to say that Steve and I made a decision like early on that rituals are important for children. I mean, there's studies on that and whatever faith that is, but for us that was important. So like Shabbat or anything. And I feel like I do see it now in their teenage, young adult lives, because they have chosen without us even pushing them in any direction to like be part of BBYO or go to Shabbat, college at the Chabad or like whatever it is, that they're like really engaged in that. So I think that was a good decision.
Awesome. Yeah, Daniela?
I think the way you deliver it is important as well. I grew up like very, very, very strict Catholic. So the way that's delivered, can influence your kid to do that in a positive manner or in a negative manner where they want to kind of swing the other way and do a 180 in college or whatever it may be. So I think the important part is it's great that it's meaningful to you, but how you instill that in your kid, I think, is the ultimate key factor here, and not being forceful about it, I guess.
So sometimes it's not necessarily the path itself, but just that a child can feel their parents guiding them lovingly on some path, whether that's a path of exploration, of seeing all the different options in the world, or a path, specifically rooted in one tradition. But you can feel that love and guidance. You're less likely to say, this is garbage, I'm leaving, right? You can feel the value of that path. Yeah, Laura?
Well, I'm sure that my mother had good intentions, but I grew up scared of everything, and this is what you get.
So, I think we had a good discussion of oh yeah, Michael, sorry.
So, Rabbi, this is sort of a question, but I know that there's the distinction also between some traditions uphold the matrilineal passing on of Jewish traditions versus the patrilineal, and your emphasis or description of permanent symbols. I know that some Jewish cemeteries take issue with tattoos, for instance, but then you have Holocaust survivors sort of wear that becomes a permanent symbol of their identity, not only the suffering they endured, but kind of who they are. And do you have any, are there other types of permanent symbols besides circumcision mentioned elsewhere in the Torah, or other permanent symbols that are practiced that I just don't know about?
Mm-hmm. I'd say the circumcision is probably like the most permanent. There's also a passage, and this is very ancient text from a different time, but when kind of indentured servitude forms of slavery were very common, someone who had sold themselves into slavery out of desperation and decided that they'd never wanted to be freed because they felt like they had the best life they could get with their the family they ended up with. They can say, even though there's a timeline where you're supposed to release all people who were in servitude, they could say, I want you to pierce my ear as a symbol that I've made this commitment to this family and that I'm staying in this specific role. So for some people, earrings represent that relationship. Today, we just see them as kind of decoration. But that was probably the most permanent. They could probably take the ring out, but it remains there. And then there was, a lot of discussion about tattoos. It was a known practice. And the Mishnah talks about sort of what is a tattoo and when are you purposely getting one versus kind of against your will. So with the Holocaust survivors, that was not a voluntary thing. And they also talk about different remedies for wounds that could create a permanent color change in your wound that looks like a tattoo, and you're like, oh, looks like a bunny, right? So you could luck out and get a bunny tattoo when you're treating a wound, and that's not violating the Jewish law. So Reform Judaism is more open. There are a lot of even Reform rabbis who have tattoos, but in Orthodox law, there's a lot more limitations on what's acceptable. You can still be buried in a Jewish cemetery. Holocaust survivors are, able to be buried. And some tattoos are even encouraged in Orthodox law if it's necessary to recreate what the body looked like before. So if you have like a surgery that removes something, you can kind of have an artist kind of recreate that with ink, and that's considered acceptable even in Orthodox law. So good. Oh, that's okay. All right. So we continue our service on page, and thank you, Elliot, for bringing the microphone around. We continue our service on page 20 with Aleinu. Please rise for the Aleinu prayer. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, latet gdula liotze breshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, belo samanu kamishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, begor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu kol ושמו אחד. At this point in our service, we think of loved ones who have passed away recently or at this time in years past. Tonight we remember with love Andrew Bailey, father of Wynne Loria, Bill Halperin, grandfather of Beth Raniclev, Mildred Phillips, grandmother of Ron Friedman, Rose Schnitt, mother of Sheila Schnitt, Gerson Selden, father of Amy Arkava, Alan Soloway, father of Michael Marsh Soloway, and Frontis Burbank Wiggins Jr., father of Joanne Wiggins. Are there other loved ones we wish to remember tonight?
Evelyn Soloway.
Zichronam Livracha, may their memories always be a blessing. We remain standing as a community of support for the mourners Kaddish on page 21. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach hirute v'yamlich machute, B'chayechon uvyomechon, uvchaye dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehe Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudesha brichu, le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim alinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, alinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved, and let us say, Amen. Please be seated. We conclude our service tonight on page 23 with Adon Olam. Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'ed nasa b'chefto kol azai melech shemo nikra Adon Olam v'yacharei kichlot hakol levado yimloch nora Adon Olam v'hu haya v'hu hoveh v'hu yeh b'tifara Adon Olam Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'ed nasa b'chefto kol azai melech shemo nikra Adon Olam v'hu echad v'ein sheni lehamshil lo lehachmira Adon Olam b'li reshit b'li tachlit v'lo ha'oz v'ha'misra Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'ed nasa b'chefto kol azai melech shemo nikra Adon Olam v'hu eli v'chai goeli torchev li b'yitzara Adon Olam v'hu nisi umanos li Menat kosi beyom ekra Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'ed nasa b'chefto kol azai melech shemo nikra Adon Olam biyado afkid ruchi Be'etishan ve'a'ira Adon Olam Ve'im ruchi geviati Adonai li ve'lo ira Adon Olam asher malach b'terem kol yitzir nivra li'ed nasa b'chefto kol azai melech shemo nikra Adon Olam. Shabbat shalom. And thank you to Patricia for playing tonight and for everyone who participated in our discussion. We'll continue in the back with Kiddush and Motzi. Please return your services to the table near the entrance. Oh, announcements. Sorry, very subtle. Thank you. You almost got off.
Oh no, I'm excited. Shabbat Shalom. If you haven't heard, we're having Risket for the Brisket on Sunday from 12 to 2. Please go on our website and register so we know how many people are coming, but I think we'll have enough brisket, so please come out. Again, that's this Sunday after religious school from 12 to 2. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.